And just to end things off, we have a very special guest to the channel, who's obviously going to disagree with me. So this is going to be our last a surprise guest, who's who's back with a vengeance, just as a little palate cleanser. So hello, Petti. How are
Good
you?
evening. I'm good. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. I like your bisexual lighting. It's looking good,
Kind of
and the panda's back.
mono today. A
Oh
little bit
yes,
mono.
yes, yes.
So I just noticed you be hitting people with like the most interesting compliments when they come on your panel. So I would also like to be buttered up before we start. Like, let's just get it out the way, please.
Okay, well, I mean, I'm loving the hair.
Okay. All
And the
right.
contrast with the background is just brilliant. I'm really liking this aesthetic. Your skin is like glowing as well.
Mm,
It sort of gives me, it's the ambiance of, do you know the film Moonlight?
no,
Brilliant
I'm
film.
not
Oh,
so
you
sure.
need to watch Moonlight. It's absolutely incredible film. Just
I don't know.
very,
Like, I listened to some of your Spotify playlists recently, and I have questions. Um, this isn't an attack. This isn't an attack. I have questions. I won't ask them here. But um, if you really want to talk about, to touch on what the last guy was talking about, if you really want to talk about an interesting place to grow up, we actually need to talk about Ohio. We have to
okay.
talk about Ohio. I'm sure you've seen the memes. Well, if you haven't and you do see them in the future, they're all true. All of them are actually true. But how's your New Year going?
Sorry.
How's your New Year going?
My new year. Oh well, as you can see, it's been quite busy, unexpectedly so. But I can't complain. Uh,
Wait, Moonlight. Is that the one with the guy and he goes to prison?
Goes to
No?
prison.
Okay. Never mind. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh,
If-
Moonlight. Moonlight is 2016 film. It's an indie film starring Mahershala Ali and Ashton Saunders and Naomi Harris. Brilliant
was
film.
there the gay thing in there? Am I
Yes,
remembering? Okay, yeah.
yes, yes. Beautiful
Wait, that's
soundtrack.
okay.
Yeah.
But any New Year's resolutions? I'm going to get big and strong in the gym.
Oh, good for you. I'm happy for you. I don't do that. Yes, yeah, I don't do New Year's resolutions, but I find it very interesting hearing about other people's resolutions. I don't know. I think, I guess I have goals for this year, I suppose, but nothing terribly concrete. I'd like to learn how to drive. Um, yes, yes. I think I want to get my citizenship sorted out, just with the world changing, but
Okay.
not nothing terribly fun. Just very bureaucratic things. But
I see.
yes, yes, yes. So
I didn't realize we had a non-driver here,
oh
but
yes,
that's
yes. I live in a
interesting. Yeah.
city where everybody just cycles and walks everywhere. You have people walking whilst they're reading like Tolstoy. So it's yeah, driving is not done, but I think in terms of moving, it's necessary. But yes,
Okay. Last Christmassy question. Any Christmas gifts?
Christmas
Any
gifts.
holiday gifts? Anything like that?
No, no, I didn't. Yeah, no, I don't. I don't really celebrate Christmas. So I was just I recorded a YouTube video on Christmas Day, and just ended up watching some horror films. Has anybody watched Wrong Turn? I watched all five of them. They were absolutely terrible, but I'm not a very good film critic, so I thought they were brilliant. So yeah,
Why'd you
yeah.
watch? If they're terrible, why did you? How did you get to five?
Um,
If they're
you
bad,
know,
if they're
I'm not a very good film critic. I find every film that I watch pretty brilliant. Like when I rate films on uh, IMDb, all of them are like either a 9 or a 10, and nothing lower than that. I don't know. I enjoy horror because I find horror a very interesting experience because it sort of flips the ideal of life on its head in the most gruesome way, and it just shows you the worst of humanity. And I think that really just it grounds me. It brings me back down to earth, and I'm like, oh, okay. I'm really not all that, or sort of, it just shows you how fleeting life is. You know, you could just be like walking, and then suddenly somebody comes with an axe to your head, and it's like, oh, okay, it's over. And it's like, well, wow, gosh. And so I don't know, it's just a very peculiar experience, I find. And I also find sort of the philosophy behind some horrors interesting. Like Wrong Turn is about these stereotypical hillbillies who live in West Virginia in the outbacks, and they they basically decimated all the wildlife because they just eat humans who pass through. And it's just very interesting about people being isolated from other human beings, and sort of how these hillbillies are treated by these civilized passerbys who or passers-by who basically treat them like they're animals, and so they ultimately become animals. And so it's like this self-fulfilling prophecy, and it's so peculiar and bizarre, but I don't know, I sort of love that absurdity of horror films, but also just of life in general. Everything is quite absurd, and I think you just need to go with it, or you just need to laugh about it because it's just it's bizarre.
Okay, yeah, we all from time to time think about the occasional car swerving off the road and hitting us and unaliving us. You know, the intrusive thoughts, they get the better of us sometimes. Um, my Christmas gift
Oh
was
yes,
a
yes,
ship in a
yes,
bottle.
yours.
It was a ship in a bottle.
Oh
That's
wow.
cool. I don't know how they got it in there, but it's in there. So
Extraordinary.
yeah, I'll
Wow.
put it on my shelf, tell people I made it. I like to steal credit for stuff.
Oh,
Um,
oh, good for you. Good for you. I'll keep your
so,
secret.
in the spirit of being open and honest with each other in this conversation, because I like
Yes.
to be vulnerable when I talk, I would
Yes.
like to share with you a short story from my childhood.
Okay.
I will be short, quick,
Okay.
precise. When I was in the third grade, I had to poot. This was just a random, ordinary day in which I had to poot, which is like embarrassing to do out loud generally, unless you're joking with your guy friends, which I was not. And
You
I
needed to
sat in the back of
poot.
fart.
Oh, I see. I'm so sorry. I'm not up to date with the lingo, but yes, yes. Thank you. Yes.
Up to date. This has been around for like the past 600 years, but okay. Um, So I sat in the back of the classroom because that's where the teacher places the bad kids, and I was a naughty child. But I had to poot, and I had this genius idea, you see, because I was something of like a child prodigy. So to cover the sound of my fart, I had the idea to drop my math textbook, and it was like this big heavy thing for my grade, and I was going to drop it on the floor so that there would be this loud thwop to like cover the sound of my fart. So far, so good, right? And I'm thinking in
Yes.
my head, yes, yes, this is genius. And so I drop it, and it makes a loud thwop, and literally everyone in the classroom, including the teacher, they all turned behind to look at me. And then I let out this incredibly loud fart. It was the most embarrassing thing that I've ever in my life. And you have to understand, from that day, I was no longer Prince Petty. I was the fart kid. And nothing else that I did or achieved mattered compared to that. So your poop video actually inspired me to be more open and vulnerable. So there we are. Now that I shared my vulnerable moment, you can do yours.
Oh, that was brilliant. Oh my goodness. That was excellent.
Or
Yes.
I guess you can leave me hanging. That's cool too. Never
Oh
open me up
no,
again.
no. My vulnerable moment. I don't know if I've shared this before. I'm sure I have. Have I shared the yoga queef story?
Is that
I
like a slice of cheese or?
oh no. No. Well, basically, I decided to do yoga, and I started yoga, and I went to a yoga class, and for some reason, it was one of those yoga classes where there's no music for some reason, and it was I at the time I wish there was music, but basically I started doing like sort of like handstands, all the yoga moves, all the poses, down dog, all of that. And at this point in my life, I just moved to the UK. Well, not just moved. I've been here a few years, but I was still very young, very quiet, very in myself, very fragile, and didn't talk at all. And I sort of had come from South Africa, and I didn't know how the female anatomy worked down there. Really, I was still under the impression that I just had a hole for urinating and one for defecating, and that was that. I didn't realize that there was a third hole, and I didn't realize that that third hole could actually absorb a lot of air, and in times of dire constraint would need to let that air out. And so I was doing all my yoga poses, and my third, or I guess second hole, was just inhaling all this air that was coming in from all these splits and all these movements. And then our yoga instructor called us all to sit in a circle together. And so I went and sat down and had my legs crossed, and suddenly this noise, just this like sort of trumpet sound, just erupted from me. And I was so confused because I knew that I hadn't farted, um, but I knew it had come from in between my legs. And I didn't realize that some kind of noise could come from, my bladder. That made no sense to me whatsoever. And so I was panicking, and it just wouldn't stop. And this was also, for some reason, a yoga class in which it was myself, the yoga instructor, who was female, and the rest of them were men. And I did not know what was going on. And they were all seemed very nice about it. They just pretended it wasn't happening. But it was just becoming more audible. And the more I tried to hold it in, the more it just wanted to come out. And it was just this like, it sounded like trumpets, like somebody playing a trumpet, or the trombone. But it was just, and it just would not stop. And I didn't know what to do. And I was just panicking and fretting. And the more I fretted, the louder and more audible it got. And I didn't know what was happening because I didn't know that I had a vagina at this point in my life. And I just ran out of there. I actually left my shoes, never got those back, and I never went back to that yoga studio ever again. I'd all the money that I'd saved for the yoga for all those sessions never went back. And I I it was horrifying. That was how I discovered I had a vagina, and I figured out sort of that it's sort of that there was like a different hole to your bladder where you urinate. I didn't realize that there was a difference actually. So it was it was an interesting lesson of my anatomy. But yes. So that's my vulnerable story. Thank you for attending this TED Talk, everybody. Yes.
Well, my story no longer seems as severe as I thought it was.
Well, well, you were a young child. That's quite traumatic, actually. I would think. I've always been quite lucky with farting. I'm sort of a silent farter, and as far as I know, it doesn't leave a smell either.
You stealth bombing people?
Sorry.
You're stealth bombing people out here?
Oh yes, definitely. I fought all the time. If you, it's yeah. I fought all the time, but allegedly it doesn't smell because nobody like runs away or anything. So it's fine. Like I'm a constant farter. I've been farting all the way through this stream. It's
I mean, I was I was at a funeral. I think it's maybe politeness. I was at a funeral and I tooted like silently, and I thought no one smelled it because no one said anything. But the man next to me said, "Who died in here?" So I feel like maybe people are being polite. Um,
I
and
don't
I don't.
know. I don't know. I eat the same things. I don't really change my diet all that much. And so I eat the sort of the same things. I'm very like, my digestive system is very regular. So I think I've been very lucky. If anything, I think it's just a matter of luck more so than like me being routine or regimental about how I eat or what I eat. I'm like clockwork, and so yeah, and also it just yeah, it's okay. I mean, I don't know. I did find when I started getting a full body wax, for instance, I get my whole body waxed once a month. It's a very exhilarating experience. I feel like I've just emerged from the womb. But when that happens and like I'm just completely hairless everywhere, I do find that when I fart, I can actually like sort of like feel a ripple effect a little bit. It's a bit peculiar because that never happened, but it's still non-audible, so we're okay. But yes, yeah, it's interesting. It's human body fascinates me. It really does. It's this whole system of just waste and decay. But yeah, it's fascinating stuff. But
Yes.
yeah,
Oh, and
yeah.
to be fair to you, I don't think most people know there's a third hole. But why was your? How come your chat? How come they were like, "Here goes the whole story again" when you started? Is this like a regular? No,
Oh, did I tell you this once then?
not me.
Oh,
Not
I
this is
guess I
my
must have
first.
told them. Uh,
They were in there like, "Oh, here we go." All
oh,
right.
oh yes, yes. I think they know that I like to talk about. I'm very open about these things. If you give me the chance, I will be. And I think it's a bit of a mind fuck for a lot of people because I sound the way I do, but then I
You curse?
talk about rather vulgar things when I'm given the opportunity. So yes, Rennie, the yoga story. Yes, I have. Oh yes, I have told you. Oh yes, I think I've told everybody at this point. It's it's a rite of passage to my life. But oh yes, yes.
Okay. Let me try to walk things back from a place from which we have a boundary which we have crossed. Um, Before we start, I would like to apologize in advance. Um, I understand that your audience is a lot more cultured than I am, and oftentimes it can be a very jarring transition from conversation about like socioeconomic issues into talking about poop bucket and now the stealth bombing queef thing. And so I would like to apologize. I will extend that to them.
Oh no, we
Um,
love it. We love the diversity of this channel. It's what makes it entertaining.
so I think we'll probably agree on a lot. I just have 2 points which I wanted to bring up. But outside of that, I think we'll mostly agree. For example, I personally think it's rude to publicly drag someone through the mud and then demand that they respond privately. Would you agree there?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, not very good etiquette, especially if they leave you on red. That's like quite rude. But enough of that. So, 2 questions. My first question, um, like I said in my email, do you think the left is failing men?
Yes, I do. I do. I think it's they're indirectly failing men. They're ignoring them and their concerns, and I think the increasing identity crisis of men and the changing world that really isn't corresponding very effectively to masculinity, or at least traditional masculinity, and that by focusing on other things or sort of ignoring men insofar as perceiving men as inherently privileged and at an advantage and therefore not a priority or not important, they inadvertently fail them through ignoring them. So yes.
I'd like to ask. So this is a when you say failing men, it's not like an economic or political lawmaking, financial stuff. More like social issues. Would you say?
Yes, I think in yeah, culturally, insofar as providing a positive understanding or even a basic understanding of sort of the process of growing up, of being a man, of being in touch with yourself, your emotions, your being an exceptional individual in and of yourself. I think there's a lot of ground that needs to be covered, just insofar as just generally sort of molding any human being, any person, giving them sort of the tools to becoming a human being, to sort of becoming a person. And I think there isn't a lot on offer for men. Yeah, yeah,
So it sounds like, in so many words, the, I guess, traditional masculinity has become more obsolete. And for half of the population of the world, this is a difficult adjustment, and the left is not really acknowledging that. Is that a good interpretation?
yes, yes. I would say so. Yes, I would say so. I think it's even. I think even the idea of traditional masculinity is quite difficult to sum up, because I think only a small, a very small group of people actually in any society have really had that and enjoyed the fruits of that, insofar as having power, both politically, socially, economically, culturally, even relationally to women, and in sort of success in all those spheres of life. It's typically always involved putting down not just women but also other men, and so I think it's a tricky one. But yeah, yeah, I'd say yeah, I agree with you on that. Yeah.
So initially, I think I agreed with you, at least mostly. But after some careful consideration, I don't know why I just said that like I'm interviewing you for a job. After some careful consideration, I've decided that I disagree. But socially, I think that the left is doing a lot more for men than I've personally given credit for. I think than a lot of people have given credit for. And one of the most important ways, I think, is just even the expansion of what it means to be a man, right? When I was a boy, it was considered like feminine and girly to wear a pink shirt because boys wear blue and all that. And at some point, I remember there was like this shift, and like suddenly, almost overnight, it became real men wear pink because a real man doesn't care if other people thinks pink is not manly. He wears what he wants to because he's a real man and blah, 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 blah. And for me, that was the beginning of kind of the opening of the more stringent views around manliness and masculinity. And now, of course, today we have the soft boys. I think they're called femboys, maybe, not sure.
Yeah.
But there's a place for them today where I feel like there was not in the past. And I would attribute that to progressives, which generally I think in the US we ascribe to the left.
Interesting. I do disagree. I think when we compare that to, say, feminism, I think we can see the difference in that, because I think what happened with sort of the becoming of a woman. I think we've sort of moved from philosophical feminism to sort of like the philosophy of woman's place in society, of sort of becoming a woman, realizing yourself as an individual, an autonomous individual, to political feminism, like with the suffragettes, the right to voting. It sort of had to, this sort of belief in oneself, this identity within oneself, this becoming within oneself, had to precede the sort of political expression of that and awakening that then transpired. And I think we're still in that now. I think most political feminists have sort of this realization that, we're have this idea that they are exceptional individuals who have become women. And so I think that's important. I think when it comes to this expansion of the idea of masculinity, however, I think that that hasn't emerged in the same way from sort of a philosophical reckoning of what it is to be not just traditional masculinity, but to be any kind of alternative masculinity. I think it's emerged from the want for and the in the interest of profit. And so a lot of these things which you described, such as men wearing pink shirts, for instance, that sort of emerged from a realization and an appreciation that we can make a lot of money from men by especially making them a lot more conscious about their physical appearance, by making them self conscious about how they look, by telling them that everything is about looks, by saying that they can become a different kind of man if they just invest enough time and money into this particular gym membership, this particular book, this particular aesthetic, what have you. And so it sort of starts from a position of alternative masculinities or an expansion of masculinity as consumer, as opposed to an expansion of masculinity from the point of an actual philosophical awakening and appreciation and understanding of oneself. So I think that's where it sort of falls short a bit relative to, say, I think modern woman's sort of awakening, which has its roots, I think, very much in a system of a philosophical system and appreciation. And I think the left lacks that appreciation that actually, if we consider masculinity and sort of men in a philosophical way and give it the time of day and actually really consider it deeply, meaningfully, authentically, that, it doesn't entail or necessitate or just relegates itself to being exploitation, dominance, aggression, hostility, anger, a lack of emotions. And I do think that the left really lacks that and instead just, I think, caters to and just reinforces sort of the new man, which is a consumer more than anything else, because that's easier.
So, firstly, I think it was really funny what you said about like that definitely was a thing. The profit margin of the pink shirts that said "real men wear pink." I definitely do remember that in Walmart, somewhere on some aisle. Um, and I was talking to someone yesterday, and I forgot what it was, but they were like, instead of moving to a society where women don't feel like they have to wear makeup to look good, it's probably gonna move to where men are wearing makeup and makeup companies are just having a really good time with profits. But no, the pink shirt was just an example. I do think there is like a stress for emotional openness and availability on the left for men, but and I will agree that I think there can be more done. Obviously, even if I think something is there, I always usually think there's room for improvement. But when it comes to kind of the not exploring masculinity, that feels like a more regressive view, which to me is more right leaning when it comes to kind of not exploring manliness outside of a box. I think about the more traditional right leaning version of a man who's the big strong provider, Christian values, males, and they don't really think about men outside of that. And I don't have a problem with that necessarily. But my issue, I guess, comes with their exclusion of men who aren't in that box, right? From the right, it never seems like, oh, I want to provide for my family. That's how I want to be a man. That's how I want to practice masculinity. It's more like, what happened to this society? Where are the real men? Men these days are crying all the time. Depression isn't real. It didn't men. It didn't exist back in my generation. And these modern soy boy weak men, what happens to the strong good men, the providers, and blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
So it feels like there's more of a stigma in the right, which I assume is who you're comparing the left to. And it feels like to men who don't want to, or maybe even can't meet those expectations around traditional manliness, because I don't think a lot of men can these days, like
Yeah,
provide for an entire family
exactly.
on one income, like you could in the past. I think people probably struggle with two incomes.
Yeah.
So, at least the way you've articulated, there hasn't been an exploration of masculinity in the way that there has femininity. I will, I guess, I will dock a point from the left for that because I do think femininity has been explored a lot more. But I can't say I don't know that I like the alternative.
Yes, I agree with you. I don't like the alternative either. I do think that there is something we can learn from the alternative, which is that it did have a sort of philosophical, almost religious basis to it of man having a purpose and masculinity having this purpose that went beyond himself into sort of his family, his legacy, his heritage, what he'd leave behind, sort of ideas of honor and, those sorts of things, at least for those men who could really live by that and really do that. And I think society was far more on the side of giving men the means to accessing that in the way of sort of working the workforce, being male dominated, etc. So I think there was sort of at least that there were the tools in place to sort of direct men towards that sort of philosophical awakening of their position in society and within the family. And it was just, in a sense, taken for granted, whereas that is no longer the case. And I think there aren't tools available like there were to help men navigate the sort of existential crisis or the ambiguity of masculinity and being an individual man in the modern world. And I think that's disheartening, more so. And I think that's what I'm more concerned about as opposed to the idea of bringing back the old tools in order to foster sort of the old traditional masculinity. I think it is more so about crafting new tools, but not crafting them from a place of resentment or a place of perceiving men in very traditionalist rhetoric and terms of sort of inherently being aggressive, lacking in emotionality, etc. I think it needs to come from a place of an actual appreciation of the humanity and individuality of men, and not feeling or not relegating them to the sidelines, as is, seems to be the undertone of a lot of conversations around masculinity and men. And I think that just adds fuel to the fire of the rhetoric that's brought forward by especially the most prominent red pill content creators. And I think inevitably sort of reinforces a lot of the points which they make, which seem true, because there just isn't that alternative. There isn't that pushback, or I think that's being on the side of men, which doesn't mean not being on the side of women, or of people. It's just sort of an expansion of empathy, an expansion of understanding, an expansion of appreciating the diverse nature of the human experience. So, yeah.
I guess since you brought up the manosphere, I'm gonna skip a point and come back to it. But I'll move to my second thing. First, do you think the manosphere is right leaning, left leaning, apolitical?
The manosphere. Oh, I
Yeah.
think it's everything. There's a bevy of beauties in the manosphere. I think it's very difficult to contextualize them. I'd say that the red pill sort of subcategory of the manosphere. I'd say that's far more right wing, definitely. But I do think that a lot of the manosphere, with its ideas about just generically about taking a pill in order to sort of expose the truth of what is going on, that has a lot of tenets of left, or rather extreme left thinking, as well as rather extreme right thinking. But I think with a lot of, I would say, even black pill thinking, there are like sort of remnants of a lot of sort of rather leftist rhetoric about sort of the, I'd say, what's a good example of this? No, I can't think now. But in terms of sort of the idea of like the world, especially the ideas of the exploitative nature of the modern world and of modern life, there is a lot of, it's like a weird blend, I think, of like sort of conspiratorial thinking and sort of the idea of uncovering the truth of the matter, which also sort of has sort of a few Marxian tenets to it, which is interesting. But yeah, I'd say more right wing, but not sort of right wing in the sort of feeling accepted by the right, but sort of pariahs of the right. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's interesting.
I'm trying to figure out what algorithm you got because my manosphere is very right leaning. They are definitely very okay. So the waking up out of the matrix, I've seen that a lot more recently. Well, I guess the red pill itself is about the matrix, but more so with the Andrew Tates and Sneakos around lately. I've seen more of the like conspiracy wake up thing, but for the most part, my experience with the manosphere has been, I guess, really traditional conservative values around family, around men and women's roles in society. Um, but then you get the 50-50 people who don't want to pay for the first date, but also want the traditional whatever. So I mean, I guess I do see it being kind of all over the place. But it's very right leaning for me, and I brought it up because I do think the right reaches out to men, and I do think. Well, yeah, I think there's outreach from the right, but I
Yeah.
also like definitely, absolutely, the men are like flocking over there in droves.
Yeah.
But I also think there's outreach from the left, and we can agree maybe that it may be too little. I don't know like how to quantify the exact percent of lefties who reach out to young men. I don't, but I think there is outreach with understanding and with grace and with sympathy for men's issues. And but I think I would argue that the men don't really want outreach generally. I think they want the toxic parts of it, not just like a man reaching out and providing, lending an ear or giving advice for issues, right? And probably the most famous example, at least on my side of YouTube, is Kevin Samuels, and he spoke about this publicly on his channel. How when he was giving advice to younger men, kind of like 25 and below, about fashion, hygiene, dating, guy stuff, they were not receptive. They wouldn't take the advice. They wouldn't like his channel was performing poorly. But after it's only when he started dragging women online, usually black women on his channel, like dragging them through the mud, that he gets like this large male audience. Fresh and Fit, they've said the same thing on their channel before. The men aren't coming to the fitness Fridays, the workout Wednesdays, the self improvement Sundays. None of their advice for male issues. Obviously, some, but it's overwhelmingly that the men show up for the live stream where they kick the women out, slam dunk on the women, shut them down.
Yes.
The
Yes.
Roommate, another Manosphere channel, I think it used to be a lot more popular than it is now. has said the same thing. They say it explicitly to me. Like, it's not like something they say behind the scenes. They'll say it to their audience. Why is it that you men don't show up to our videos about how you can improve your life, how you can deal with specific male issues when it comes to dating, especially?
Yeah.
But when we put out a video with the drunk Miami girls and they look stupid and we can slam dunk on them and hit them with gotchas, suddenly the men are like present in droves. So the videos on dating advice, dieting, self care, personal improvement, they perform so poorly compared to the easy slam dunk on the modern delusional feminist who gets owned by facts and logic. So ultimately, these male advice channels that I think seek to provide understanding and nuance to male issues, that seek to provide a voice for men and a place for men to discuss their issues, that's not what men are looking for. The channels really blow up when they start like dragging women through the mud. And the last example I guess I have is Andrew Tate recently quite
Yeah.
literally has, obviously he's in a lot of stuff lately, but he's quite literally exposed himself explicitly online for everyone to see publicly, all this degeneracy. And throughout this, he explains his business model is exploiting men, young, weak men, with both his cam business, his touring and podcast and such. He explicitly says that I'm taking advantage of these weak men who listen to me. I'm playing them like a fiddle, taking their coin and telling them what they want to hear. And to me, this doesn't, when you say it so explicitly out loud, all of these big, like some of the biggest channels in the red pill and manosphere space, this doesn't sound to me like men want someone to listen to them and to talk to them. It sounds really explicitly like they want misogyny. So your claim that the left is failing these men out in, who are just looking for someone to understand them and listen to them and talk to them, I don't know. I don't know how much of that I can believe when the advice I think is being offered, right or left, is being offered, and the space is being offered, and it's just not taken. Like, how can I? It's a two-part thing. Like, you have to also work with me. I can't simply provide you the tools and you're just, I don't want them. I want that.
Exactly. No, no, you said that. Yeah, yeah, I completely agree with you. Like, very, very interesting. Very, like, perfectly said. Everything you said. Very important. Very true. Can't disagree with that at all. I think, I think we need to figure out how we got to this point, how we got to the point in which such content is seen drives in more people, why it is so much easier, and why people prefer, especially, I wouldn't just say men, I think everybody, in terms of content where you're dunking on somebody, where it makes the problem everybody else's problem, but not yours, specifically not yours. Why that is so enticing and so appealing to people, increasingly so, and especially you can see that online. It makes everything wrong with your life or your failings not your fault and not your problem. It's because girls are sluts and because they're stupid and their expectations are too high. And that's why my life is the way it is. It's not because of anything I'm doing. And I think even putting in the effort and then facing overwhelming rejection or failure, as we all do in everything, our wins are pale in comparison to our losses. I think it's just a lot easier. And I don't think this is necessarily just a characteristic or something of modern men. I think this is all of us. We take the easy way out or do the easiest thing. And I think, on the other hand, it's also a lot easier for the left to just see these men as just being lazy or not actually wanting to engage with content that's about self-improvement, for instance. I mean, even that content that you describe about sort of self-improvement, those sorts of things. I mean, it's very, like I said before, sort of based on, I think, this idea of masculinity, which is very much in rigid boxes of what that is, as opposed to sort of a reckoning with, I think, the emotionality and the real essence of sort of being a man. I think that's one thing that Jordan Peterson has really been effective in, with connecting with men the world over is a very unique perspective, a very sort of not just psychological but philosophical and analytical idea of what it is to be a man and why you have to actually not take the easy way out. And I think when you just compare sort of the views, even on his YouTube channel, Jordan Peterson, relative to even the big guns like Fresh and Fit, for instance, or Kevin Samuels, he gets a lot more engagement. And I think it is sort of a matter of just growing up as well. I think with Fresh and Fit, with sort of these dunking content channels, it's mainly younger men, teenagers, and I think it is a matter of growing out of that. I think at some point that isn't going to be enough, and it isn't enough, and you look for other examples, other mentors. You learn from the mistakes of investing in Andrew Tate's scam. It's a process of growing up, and I think it's also a matter of patience that's needed on the side of the left, a patience of realizing that some men go through this process of having to grow up and having to really pick their battles and decide who they are and decide who their mentors are. And a lot of them are going to make the wrong decisions or decisions that we wouldn't make ourselves. And I think rather than dunking on those individuals or seeing them as sort of lost causes at this point in time in their life, it is a matter of actually trying to understand and being there when the time comes in which Fresh and Fit, etc., aren't enough, inevitably, when it comes to actually growing up and realizing that there's a lot more to life than a lot of these essentialist and sort of very behavioralist ideas about men and women, about modern dating and the sexual marketplace. Yeah, yeah. I think what you say is very true, but I think that doesn't negate that the left can do better in engaging, understanding, patience, empathy, even when it isn't reciprocated. Because I think men are going to increasingly need an alternative to what a lot of grifters say online are offering. I don't think it's enough in the long term. I think it's, like I said, sort of very much about man as a consumer, as opposed to man as an individual, as a thinking being that is becoming in time and space. And I know that's very abstract and vague, but I think that these sort of existential crises are things that individuals go through. And I think Jordan Peterson, for instance, describes this existential sort of torment very effectively at different points in life that he's had. And I think because he's older, it sort of also resonates a lot more relative to, say, Fresh and Fit, who are sort of very much fresh and fit, literally. So, yeah, yeah.
I don't think they are either fresh. I think one of them's fit, but the other one is not. He can't be fresh. That can't be it. With
Oh
that
no, I
being
mean,
said,
I have to admit they're good looking fellows. I mean, I can't. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm, I
But
mean, hey, you like, you like. I mean, I've seen your Spotify playlist. Your tastes mean nothing to me. Um, that's how I feel about that.
oh no, I
But
think I think I really do think I'm very. I don't know. I think men are very beautiful, just like aesthetically. Like I think very like just even I said this before, like even going to the gym, like the scrawniest man could be like trying to lift weights, but it's sort of just like the effort and sort of like getting into it and sort of that faith in your body and its strength and everything. It's very fascinating to sort of see it in action. I think, from sort of like the strongest to the weakest, sort of that engagement with your physicality and your body. And I think it's very, very attractive to see. I can definitely sort of, yeah. I don't think men realize sort of their presence that they can have. And it's not just about having muscles or being strong. I think it's about how you sort of see yourself. And I think a lot of the times in the gym, I sort of will see, like, there's this man who I see often. He's quite small, and he does every week he sort of improves on his weights, and I can just see like his confidence, like in himself, like sort of growing, and like his, it's fascinating to see, and it's very, very masculine in its sort of trying and testing oneself in this way. So yeah. I mean, yeah, it's fascinating to see. But yeah,
I'm sorry, your use of the word masculinity right now just triggered me because masculine isn't actually about muscles, and I need you to retract what you said and actually apologize to every man online ever. Go ahead. And also check your privilege.
I didn't say it was about muscle.
No, I'm actually imagining you like approaching some scrawny guy in the gym while he's benching, and you're like, hey, I saw the way you tried to lift that 300 pounds. And even though it slipped out your hand and caved your chest in, that was so hot. That was actually really manly.
I mean, I've
Um,
never seen that. I actually see a lot of it's yeah, no. I don't know if it's just my gym, but men are very like reasonable. It's not they sort of know what they can do, and you know testing yourself, but like realistically. But yeah, it's great to see sort of people in action.
so I will agree with you to the earlier point before we talked about men looking good. We'll disagree there. Also, women look good. Men, there needs to be some work for me. Um, but I'll agree that it is easier to. Nope, not
Oh no,
gonna
I
let
think
you
women are
finish that.
beautiful as well, definitely. But yeah, I think there is just something for me about masculinity that's just very sort of very when it's very unintentional, like sort of yeah, it's very just nonchalant, and it's sort of not about I don't know, it's not like about anybody else. It's just about sort of you. And I think the gym is a good place to see that, where it's sort of like a man just benching and just like testing himself and in his moment, and it's sort of inadvertently is very very physical, like the whole experience, the whole mind body connection and everything. I don't know, maybe I just look too deeply into it, but it's interesting.
I'm sorry. I should not. I just opened the comments. I'm now closing them. I actually shouldn't have looked at any of these. What is anyway? Um, I will agree with you. Oh. Even though I don't find men attractive generally, you know what men are attractive? My homies, always.
You're sorry,
Hugs. My homies.
your homies, as in your
Yeah.
friends, your brethren.
Oh yeah. All the
Okay.
guys in my friend group are cuties. Like
Oh, that's
actually,
good. That's
no
good.
homo. But I do agree. It's easier for people to kind of, including men, not just men, but including men, to kind of push off when there's a conversation in which sometimes you need to look at yourself and maybe improve yourself, which a lot of the manosphere conversation I think is is about actually. um it's easier to say, hey, it's not you, it's women, it's them, it's not you. I think that's easier, and I do agree with you that it is important to look at why. But that, to me, I don't think, for me, that's not like a flaw of the left. That's just
Yeah,
something
I agree with you.
something else that I guess to add on, which I feel
Yeah.
like I don't know if I feel like they're doing it actually, but I feel like there is attempt at least. I don't know how much there should be. I would ask, because it's easy. I actually think right leaning politics are a lot easier to spread in my mind. Like more regressive politics, I feel are easier to spread because, like, to explain away, I think the left politics take like a lot of research and explanation. Like, remember you were talking about the trans in sports, and you were like, I researched into women's tennis and this certain section organization and how they vet for criteria for who should play and whatnot. And like, that's a lot of extensive research that I feel like a lot of, and that's just one sport that a lot of people I don't think would do on trans issues. When it's like a lot easier to just say, trans women aren't women, and why should they be in women's sports, and blah 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 blah, and get a
Yeah,
following that way. And in the same way, I think it's really easy for like the manosphere to make 5 second clips on TikTok where it's just like
yeah,
dunking on women or delusional modern women, and then to come and fight against that is like, I was talking with I was talking with a gentleman for I think an hour or two about, he approached some woman on the street and he said, "You look nice," and she rolled her eyes, and he was like, "So is it okay for me to call her a B word and a SLUT and the garden tools and all this stuff?" And I we had to like talk for literally an hour about like the concept of some random stranger coming to you and complimenting you and expecting something in return, and why, like, how would you feel if some random man came up and ogling you, and think about maybe the fact that probably she had that happen to her earlier that day and then yesterday and then for the past 10 years since she's 13, maybe she's not receptive to that. Like, there was so much
yeah,
to come at things, I think, from a place of nuance and understanding takes a lot more time
exactly. It's
than.
difficult.
And to be fair, you did say the left, I think, puts in more work because I guess there has to be for
The left
progression.
has to. I do.
So
I wholeheartedly believe the right doesn't. It's a lot easier for the right
yeah,
and right politics. The left has to. I think my saying that the left has to do better is because even if it's doing the best, it has to go beyond that and keep going beyond that. It's very difficult. Leftist politics, just insofar as what it stands for, insofar as what it's trying to do, and insofar as the people it's trying to reach and represent. It's very hard, a lot harder. And I think it's I don't think it's to the left's advantage to do what the right does, which is to relegate the problem to other people, to say that, oh, we don't have the problem. It's men, it's the patriarchy, it's capitalism. That's just an easy explanation to things. And what comes after that? And, what can we do? So I think, yeah, there's a lot more work that has to be done by the left. Inevitably, that's just the fact of the matter. That's just life. It's not fair, but life's not fair. So yeah, yeah.
So I'll end on my initial question because I do agree with you that the movement can be better. I think anyone who's a part of any movement will agree with literally anybody who says it can be better. But I'll ask my original question. Do you think the left is failing the men? Obviously, again, there's room for improvement. We can agree there. But do you think we're failing?
Yes, I do. I still do. Yes. But I don't say that with as much confidence as I think I said at the beginning of this little segment. But I do still think so. But you have given me a lot to think about, especially with what you said, very importantly, about the sort of content difference and responsibility. Very, very interesting. Sort of a lot to think about. And yeah, yeah. So I don't say it with as much confidence, but I do still say it. But I'm on I'm on the edge of the cliff with that one. So yeah.
Cool. All snaps, no claps. I don't clap. Um,
Okay.
but yeah, I think I'm going to end there. I was going to ask, what solutions would you suggest to the left as far as what does it look like practically? We have to do better for the men, understandable. What does it look like practically? But you don't have to answer that question.
Yeah, that requires a lot of thought and yeah, yes. I'll be honest, I really don't know beyond what I've sort of said about communicating with people and actually really having to have very difficult conversations, very difficult engagements with people who especially don't want to be engaged with, and keeping at it even when it seems pointless and useless. I think that's those are the most important points, because at some point those people are going to at some point incels are not going to find a home within incel forums, and are going to realize that the world is very different to what they've believed, the majority of them, and they're going to remember who had faith in them and who tried to stand by them, and they're going to remember those who shunned them, who ridiculed them, who stereotyped them, who didn't extend that, I don't want to say kindness, but that a willingness, or that relationship, that possibility of a relationship. And people remember that. And I think the left can do a lot better in that. Yeah.
Okay, I'm not the left, but I'll accept the critique. I'll bring it to them and see what they say.
Oh, thank you. You can be the messenger. So
They don't seem to be
the
responding
go-between.
well.
Oh yeah, yeah. Likewise, likewise. Yeah, they don't like me either, but it's okay. It's okay. I still will talk to them. I'll still keep at it. I have no soul, so I've got nothing to lose. That's okay. Thank you again. You're a very good interviewer. Like you should like keep at
Oh,
this. You're really good at this.
the way
So
your chat came over and dragged me for that last interview,
they
no,
dragged you. Oh, I thought you were
I'm actually,
brilliant. I really
I'm
enjoyed
actually
it.
putting, I'm gonna put interviews off on the shelf forever now. It's fine.
No, you need to. You were brilliant. Honestly, I would love to be interviewed again. I found it you really make you put me at ease, and I felt able to be very open, without sort of judgment, but at the same time, you weren't just reinforcing what I was saying and saying, good on you. You were saying, well, actually, I think this, but you're open to express what you think. You're very, very good at creating sort of a good environment for somebody being interviewed. So, yeah, you should definitely keep it
I'm
up,
sorry.
please.
When you said you made me feel very open, I very like inappropriately thought back to the queef story. I apologize. And here I am after you say you make me feel very open, bringing back traumatic memory. So
You see,
look at
this is what makes you a good interviewer. You make these good connections. You make me laugh. You put somebody being interviewed at ease, and that's the important thing. So, yeah, yes, hate and criticism. That's that comes. That it really does. But you've got to just prove them wrong.
no,
Keep
you
going.
don't understand. Your audience was in my chat telling me in response to being called the N word and go back to Africa and such. He just doesn't understand how hard it is. He needs to open up. They're lashing out, and yeah, he has to. He has to. He's not coming at this from a place of understanding. And I was like, yes, that is correct. Yes. Okay, I guess they were right. Actually, yeah.
I mean, and
The
that's
critique, I'll
fine.
accept it. I'll accept the
And
critique.
that's fine. You don't have to come from a place of understanding. We have very different experiences, different understandings, whatever. But we can still talk. Like, clearly, we're still talking, like now. Like, clearly, something's working out. So, in that, you're proving them wrong inadvertently, unintentionally. And that stands out. And I think that's the important thing. Because, yeah, you should definitely keep at it. I don't think you should stop at all. I'd be very disappointed if you did, and I think it would be a wasted asset to YouTube, and to yourself as well.
Okay. Well, my next video will be about Oreos. If yeah, I'm definitely clipping your video in which you talk about this, and that is what I will do. I'll put a little clip.
Excellent. Please do. And yes, I'll look out for it as well. I've subscribed, so yeah, I'll watch it.
Subscribe with notifications
Yes, of course, with notification. Of
in the
course.
bell icon.
Of course, yes. Notifications, the bell, everything. Yes, yes. I'm one of the first on there to put a like. Don't you worry. So yes, yes.
Yay. Okay. That's all I have for you.
That's brilliant. Well, it was lovely talking to you once again. I know this isn't going to be the last time that we talk. Inevitably, I think this has become sort of this is like kismet. We sort of come together somehow. So yeah, I'll talk to you again.
Somehow I was able to reach out to you with my critique and talk to you about it publicly and not like do like slander on my channel and then request that you email. I don't know. I just felt like if I can reach out to you, I feel like probably anybody can, but
Yes,
maybe I'm
exactly.
requiring.
Yes,
Okay, yeah. All right.
exactly.
Well, okay. You have a good evening.
Thank you. You too. And thank you so much for being here as always. And we'll speak again.
Okay, in the future.
Okay. Bye. Bye. Oh my gosh, that was brilliant. Oh my goodness. Oh gosh, I always love a little bit of Petti. That's great.